Okay, hey everybody, this is Grace, and in this video I'm going to talk about when somebody who has done you wrong, or somebody you know is wrong, even when you feel like they're pure evil, okay, however in your mind you see them as bad, maybe they've not done anything to you, you've just seen what they've done to others, or what they say, or what they try to teach others, so on and so forth. Okay, and one of the things that they do is to use Christianity. Now, I don't talk about other religions, because I only know about, what I know about Christianity, and I don't know everything, okay, there is to know. But, so I'm only going to talk about Christianity, and they'll use it to try to get to say that they are a Christian, but try to con people by using it. Okay, we know this happens. I remember when I don't remember how old I was or the exact situation, but I remember being young, and when I heard that, I was one who really had the privilege of seeing really truly holy people as a child. I really did. The church we went to, and I know a lot of people say, oh, well, you're going to feel that because of that, but you see, no, I can still say to this day, I've been to other ones, to this day, those were truly holy people, really. And there was not a bad thing about them, honestly. They seemed so sincere. But anyway, okay, and it wasn't seemed. They were. Okay, now then at some point when I was young, I heard this about people using, a kid, hearing people were using Christianity for their own selfish purposes. I was baffled. It's like, well, why? How? My favorite question was always why? When I was a child. But I want to talk about those who, you see something happen, and to them, and it's negative. They have some kind of misfortune, and you may feel like, well, for some people they may feel like they wish it upon the person, the evil. Okay, I want to dig into this kind of thing now, and wanting to see justice being served and so on. I decided to do a deep dive online about it. Google it and get the AI overview and do a deep dive on that. And I knew some of this already, but before I did that, I thought again about how I've always reacted since I was a child. And it may have been because of the church I grew up with, that I never, it would never feel good to me to see something bad happen to, even like, people say, my worst enemy. I would never wish any bad things on even my worst enemy. And if I saw something happen, it did not make me feel good. It was not something that I, was happy about. Yeah, I could say, well, justice was served, but I did not feel good. I felt empathy. I felt, I knew I would never do something bad to deserve something that bad, but I still felt bad for them, what they were experiencing. That makes sense. So I wrote down all this stuff, and when a bunch of this stuff. Okay, now I start off with what I was feeling at the time. So let me get to that. What I wrote down first was my reaction before I did I think it was before I did the deep dive, but I know what I was feeling before, and this is it. And it was when bad things happen to bad people. Okay, I got no pleasure in it, and seeing it happen, the bad stuff happen to them. And even though they got what they deserved, what would seem like, That's not for us to decide what they deserve. Anyway, it's God's to decide. Gotta remember that. Okay, but mine was, for me, it would be, what is the goal? The goal has always been, in my mind, that what I wrote down, the goal would be to see them rehabilitated. Okay, for some, I remember I had a class at university. It was a graduate level class, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. And the guy was a, what is it in the law when they, after somebody has been in prison and then they're out and they have to go to their, what is it, PO, what is it called, parole officer? Yeah, I think that's what it was, what he was. And he said in one of our classes that some people, it's not rehabilitated, it's habilitated. And I remember that made me think, wow, yeah, okay. But anyway, that's the goal that, a lot of us see. Now, I've studied, my degrees are in psychology and sociology, and I've studied this quite a bit. And a lot of times what we hear, and I was even thinking recently of I need to start doing videos on this part, is about the people who, somewhere in their lives, they went the wrong direction. Not really as a child, but maybe they were really good people for a long while, then something happened to them as an adult, let's say. And they just went weird, or went wild or something. And then, at some point, they stopped and they went back to being that good, decent person. And you're looking at one. I did that. I certainly did. I can say that and not have problems saying it. I wasn't hurt. I never did anything to hurt anybody. No, not even, well, you could say I did it for myself, but I never did anything that would hurt anybody. I never used people, none of that. It was just that I wasn't acting right. And it was a bad scene. And I just wasn't behaving right. So, and I do believe that there are people who can change. And there are people who can go through something like that, some kind of crisis situation, and change in the wrong direction, and then go back to who they were. Whatever it is, whether they get counseling or whatever, sometimes it's a situation that just they went through, and they learned as they went through it, changed, and they said, no, this is not me, I'm going back. Nope, going back. So, and they did. It's not all that doom and gloom. And that felt like doom and gloom when you study personality disorders and you hear people say these people never change, they never grow, they never this. And my experience is, once diagnosed, they haven't. Once diagnosed by a professional, not just by somebody who, wants to be thinking they're somebody who can do it. They're not. But a professional, licensed, certified, whatever it is, wherever you live, whatever the government has determined is a professional. They meet the requirements. They went through all that they had to go through, that kind of thing. So anyway, let's move on. Okay, so really what I would say is the goal is that, we hope that people change. They see they're bad, what they're doing is wrong. They see it and they say, no, I'm going to change. And they do. They work hard at changing. It's not a manipulation. It's not a game, like the people who say they're Christian and they do things like they snub their nose at it, really. And I have said this, that for years now, I have made videos about the people who get on there, get on and make videos, whatever social media platform, and they'll say, oh, wait, I don't have money for this, or I don't have money for that. Essentials. And then their audience will give them money. But then there are some, they do. They need it. It seems obvious. It maybe they're lying, we don't know it. But those who are, they usually see how much they can get, and they just keep doing it. They just keep getting more and more and more and more and more from their audience. And they become more and more manipulative. They use all kinds of excuses. And that would, like I said early on, include Christianity. They'll even take out their Bibles. I've seen so many of them over these 11 years that I've been making videos on YouTube. 11 years. And next month, my original channel. And I've seen so many, and each year something comes around. I guess it is the season for them, and I start making videos because, you know, it's like I see a new one, or sometimes it's the old ones. There's some of them are still out there. Okay, some maybe they had to move on. You know, well, actually, I know that there's some that they had to move on, and they had to get off of one, whatever one, and go to another one, that kind of thing, because it was not acceptable what they were doing. Like some of them, I don't know. I am not a spokesperson for YouTube, but I remember reading and I remember hearing things, a lot of stuff about, like, you know, each view has to be legitimate, so they, you know, people wouldn't buy views. But also, from what I remember, and I could be wrong, don't take my word on it, I am not a spokesperson, not a voice of authority, but things like people telling people, you know, their audience, or their audience asking and telling them, you know, not telling them, whatever, you know, but they say that they're just going to have it running in the background while they're doing something else, or just sit, you know, that the you know, the viewer, so that the, you know, it's just going to let it run in the background, you know, that person's channel over and over and over and over and over again, so they'll get those ads, ad money. You know, from what I recall, that's not a, I don't know, like I said, I'm not a voice of authority, but there was also, I remember people, look it up, I remember people talking a lot about this. I think it was back in, there was something going on, it was before 2020, and a lot of people were talking a lot about this. Like I said, I am not a voice of authority, but that of, you know, that YouTube, you know, has a way that people can send money to their, you know, their audiences. I'm guessing all of these do. I don't know if all of them, but yeah. So they have ways, but YouTube takes a cut out of it. And so people were saying, like I said, debating, I don't know if it was true, I do not know, that those who give those apps, you know, where you just send funds to the apps, and the apps take really little bit of it, you know, they make more money that way, the person who's making the video. YouTube doesn't make anything off of it. So, but I heard that was something that they didn't like. But like I said, I'm not a voice of authority on it. But, you know, those are like, you know, who does stuff like that? Really, seriously. Who, you know, they're using a platform, but they're going to do what's wrong. You see, and they are acceptable. They accept it. They think it's okay. You know. Anyway, now why did I get on that? But you know, the goal would really be to, you know, let's get back to this part. The goal that I have is to see them rehabilitated, see them change, see them, you know, think, okay, I'm wrong. I got to stop this, and they stop it. Okay. Then I looked up, you know, this about the. You know, more of the Christian side of it and everything, and then what came up, or maybe what just came up was the Christian. No, I'd ask, what does the Bible say about, you know, this and that, okay? And eventually, I remember I said, I'm going to look this up. It said basically, not rejoicing, in the word rejoicing, you know, rejoice, over somebody's misfortune, that I thought, yeah, that's that one. And it's Schadenfreude. Okay, so that popped up, and it says Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude is a feeling of, that's how I heard it pronounced, by the way. Schadenfreude, a feeling of pleasure derived from someone else's misfortune. Roots are in social comparison. let's see, linked to feelings of, this is me paraphrasing, linked to feelings of envy or even a sense of justice when someone seems to deserve their misfortune. It's not for us to judge. It's not for us to say this. Okay, and also it's when that person is a rival or somebody of a higher status. See, I don't believe in people having higher status. Okay, maybe you're at work, you have a boss. Okay, that kind of thing. But some people think that because a person is somebody's boss, and then therefore, but not theirs, and therefore that person is of higher status just in everything. No, we're all human, and we all have our strengths and weaknesses, and we all have our good and our things that we need to work on. We're not perfect beings, and so. But anyway, that whole thing of being jealous of somebody, jealousy and envy, these things need to be talked about more. Really, I keep telling myself that. Okay, anyway, but it might make them feel better about their own situation, whether it's improved or not. But having that feeling, that Schadenfreude, yeah, this is not good. It's not a good thing. Then I moved on and like I say, this is paraphrasing. Jesus says, love your enemies, and pray for those who persecute. Well, my handwriting is something else right there. And it says, no rejoicing, no vindictive thoughts. Choose compassion. Okay. And it says, God takes no pleasure in the death of wicked. The death of wicked takes no pleasure. And God desires repentance and change of heart. Okay. Now, then it says there is a kind of basically an exception. And that is rejoicing at the defeat of evil. It's the larger benefit to the society that should be the focus, not somebody's own sense of that, like they're gloating. Gloating was a word that was used quite often too, including rejoicing. And it says different than personal gloating or spiteful rejoicing. So, but that larger benefit to society, it's important. Rejoice in God's righteousness and triumph of good. Let's see, boy, I'm getting worse handwriting here. Not in the suffering of individuals. Okay, focus on God's glory. So, now I want to say this because I've been, like I said, I've been doing these videos. That's all I wrote down. But doing these videos for years. Something will come around and I get, usually what happens that I recall, that's 11 years. I've been through a lot. Okay. But something will be recommended, and the next thing I know, a bunch of them are recommended. And I mentioned, let's see, I wrote this down. Let me see, something else here. How many people? It was 7, but yeah. I wrote down their channel names. I'm not going to mention them. I don't mention people's channels, names, or any of that. But it was 7 people right now that are in 2 genres. And some of those 7 are in both. At least one person. But then there are others, but I didn't write those down. Okay, and there was one of them that she's good, decent person. But there are other ones like that too. Now, of the bad, 7, in just the 2 genres, like I said, there were others too, who are doing this, of trying to get money from their audiences. And some of them, I think pretty much every one of them, Let me look. Every one of them so far. Yep. One of them, maybe not. But say at least 6 of them, or let's say at least 5. Nope. Well, yeah, let's say 5 out of the 7 for certain use Christianity. Talk about being Christians in their videos, saying that they don't have money for groceries and this stuff, trying to get money from their audience, and yet that's not proper English, but yet they are doing things that are harmful that the Bible says don't do. Let's just put it that way. Christian Bible says don't do that. Don't take money from don't take money. I keep calling it money. Don't go get free food when you have enough money of your own to use, and that's basically taken away from the needy. It says you don't take away from the needy. Greed is a big thing in the Bible. You should not be greedy. But these are people who are putting out that they're Christians, yet they're being greedy. Okay, and they're also telling people you can't judge me. Judges, and they're saying judges judgment, in Christianity and all that. Read your Bible. We have the right to discernment. Okay, we are taught to discern, to decide what is good and what is evil. And some of these people, I would say a good chunk of them, I feel, are pure evil, especially one. And especially the ones that go and try to teach other people, like a false prophet. Okay. And I've always been one that I don't like hearing people talk about Christianity, about their views on Christianity. I've always been that way. Like I said, I grew up in a church when I was young. As a child, I grew up, like I just said. Kind of redundant, but and I saw truly holy people. And then when I'd hear these people, like on TV or on the radio or wherever it was, and some of the things that they would say, I'm like, what is this? You can compare. Go to the Bible itself, the Bible. But when I would hear them, something about their voices, or sometimes I even see comments, something about it gives me the heebie-jeebies. Okay, I'm just going to put it out like that. It gives me the creeps. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to sound like that. So that's why I'm saying, go to the Bible instead. Just trusting anything that somebody says online. I do find it, interesting with this AI. I have seen them where they quote things that the AI does. I'm not sure exactly how it does. When I Google something, now it's a bit different. Some of the citations, some of the things they cite, I'm thinking I wouldn't. I'm trained in research. I wouldn't quote that. As a voice of authority, no. I've seen that, but I like to do that, and like they quote the Bible. I had asked, what does the Bible say about this? And I'm just reporting what the Bible says. But there's some things. Anyway, I think some people understand what I'm trying to say. But the reason I'm bringing it up is because these are people who are using the Christianity. I'm not I am a Christian, but I'm not. I don't know everything. But the people who act as though they do, and they sit there and they show their Bible, or play Christian music, something like this, and they make sure that their audience is drawn in, and the audience is saying amen to them, and so on and so forth. Like they're having a meeting. One of these days I'm going to have to explain the church that I grew up in. And then no, it wasn't a cult. These were truly decent people, seriously. I've had enough training in my life, you know. I was a career student over 20 years. I taught at college and university. I've had plenty of in-life training in the, you know, ivory tower, as some would call it, for 20-something years. Yeah, I know I went that long because I wanted to know what I know. Really want to know it, and I do. And this stuff of people using Christianity, that's just, to me, that's pure evil. To me, it is pure evil. So in a way, you know, I should not. Let me do this. Okay, that is one of the exceptions. But I don't feel that. And I'm not saying that it's saying this. I don't think it's saying that we should, you know, experience schadenfreude. Should, you know, feel good because, you know, evil got what they deserved. No, we just should instead, is what it's saying, is, you know, it's God's choice, not ours. And we're seeing what God chose for that to happen to that person. And we shouldn't gloat over it. We shouldn't rejoice over it. You know, that something bad happened. We should understand God's there and God made the decision. And that's His glory. You see? But there will be people who will change it some way. And even what I'm saying, there will be those same people. We all know this. Those same people. I have seen this so many times, and not just about Christianity, about anything. They take that and they twist it and put it in their own, which is twisted. Okay, twisted. You know, it's evil. They'll take what is good and make it evil, and sound like try all the while trying to sound like they are good and not evil. You got it? Wrapping it up. Talk to you on another video. Bye.